Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Tensei Slime light novel recap series on AniMonolith. Picking up from where we left off, once Leon decisively pointed out that they needed to identify anyone who possessed an angelic-type skill, each demon lord had already revealed their situation. Now it was Rimuru and Leon's turn. I'll stay quiet. I may have a lot of skills, but I don't want to talk about them. Rimuru said it with a smile, though he knew why. Void God Azathoth and Harvest King Shub Niggurath were far too strange to explain openly, and even if he tried, the others would probably think he was making things up. But life is never that easy. Guy immediately shot him down. Milim, however, was the first to take Rimuru's side. Wahahahaha! I believe in Rimuru. You don't have to tell me anything as long as you give me some honey later. Her intentions were obvious, but support was support. Ramirez chimed in right after. In my case, cake is fine. 3 days worth. Tempest was full of desserts anyway, so Rimuru agreed. 3 jars of Apito honey for Milim, 3 days of dessert for Ramirez. Just like that, 2 demon lords had been bribed to his side. To show she was serious, Ramirez added that Rimuru had been the one who revealed the secret of the angelic system in the first place, so there was no reason to suspect him at all. For once, she made a solid point. With that timing, the rest of the demon lords began to lean in Rimuru's favor. Dagruel was next. He laughed and said he would trust Rimuru, especially since Rimuru had trusted him earlier. With that, Rimuru gained the majority. All he needed was one more supporter. Naturally, he looked toward Luminous. What? Don't even think about bribing me. She was firm, but Rimuru had already planned his attack. Shuna recently designed a new swimsuit. What? She took the bait instantly, and before she could recover, Rimuru continued. With Ramirez's help, Tempest had also created a private beach inside the labyrinth. A perfect paradise with crystal clear water, warm sunlight without the risk of sunburn, and the option to tan however you wanted. A place full of beauty, freedom, and relaxation. That barrage was enough to break through Luminous's defenses. She promised to visit after the meeting to discuss details about the beach and swimsuit. I understand. I trusted Rimuru from the beginning. With that final vote, Rimuru knew victory was his. Guy, of course, was furious. Seriously? This is what you're all doing? I can't believe the octagram is this easy to manipulate. But Rimuru didn't mind. Victory was what mattered. Leon wrapped things up with a resigned sigh. Guy, you'll have to accept it. Even I'm not satisfied. But it's obvious Rimuru isn't under anyone's control. And with that, Rimuru successfully cleared himself of suspicion during the Walpurgis. At this point, the skill check was almost complete. The last one left was Leon Cromwell. Dagruel ended Rimuru's bribery streak by turning the focus back to Leon's skill. And as always, Leon was straightforward and cool-headed. My skill is the ultimate skill Purity King Metatron. The room fell silent. Rimuru honestly thought he misheard. Purity King was an angelic skill. Was Leon being serious? For a moment, everyone suspected he was joking. Hey, Leon, it's rare for you to crack jokes. This is a serious meeting, you know? Calm down and tell us again. Guy, I'm not wasting time. My skill really is Purity King Metatron. There was no longer any doubt. Leon truly possessed an angelic-type skill. Just like that, right as the meeting was supposed to wrap up, a massive problem dropped into their laps. The room grew heavy with a sense of helplessness. Well then, what should we do? Hey, Rimuru-kun! Here we go. Guy immediately tried to dump the burden onto Rimuru. Rimuru snapped back, annoyed that Guy did not even pretend to hide it. Whatever delegation Rimuru pushed on his subordinates back in Tempest, Guy was returning tenfold. But Guy didn't budge. Quit complaining and think of a solution, Luminous cut in sharply. Stop arguing in front of me. Then Milim chimed in, laughing. Ha 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 ha! You know, Luminous, I get what Guy means. Rimuru really is useful in times like this. Ramirez joined in far too eagerly. That's right, just leave it to Rimuru. We can have some tea while he handles everything. And just like that, the loyal allies who had sided with Rimuru moments ago completely turned their backs the instant things got difficult. Truly selfish colleagues. Rimuru silently vowed revenge on Ramirez in particular. In the end, this was just how demon lords were. Cooperation only lasted as long as it was convenient. Even something as simple as naming the council had once turned into a battle of pushing responsibilities onto someone else. Even so, Rimuru wasn't completely alone. Dagruel, despite his intimidating appearance, turned out to be the warmest one in the room. He spoke up to comfort Rimuru with a sympathetic sigh. Rimuru, you've been through a lot. Ever since I heard you were forced to take care of Dino. I felt a sense of kinship with you. I'm sorry you have to deal with something similar again. Considering Dino had freeloaded off Dagruel in the past, the big guy understood all too well how painful it could be. That was why he genuinely sympathized with Rimuru. Of course, Dagruel had no idea that the one exploiting Dino now was actually Rimuru. Poor man. Dagruel-san, thank you. The san is unnecessary. Didn't we agree to drop the honorifics? Right. Rimuru really needed to remember that acting too humble as a demon lord could be counterproductive. Once Rimuru corrected himself, Dagruel lightly nodded, and the conversation returned to Leon. Both he and Luminous wondered whether Leon was truly all right, and more importantly, how to tell if he was being controlled. And naturally, everyone turned to look at Rimuru. Seriously? Why not ask Leon himself? Looking at me isn't going to magically produce an answer. Worse, Leon didn't seem aware of anything strange, meaning the only option Rimuru had was speculation. Still, Rimuru already had a hypothesis about how Michael's control mechanism worked, and the next step was to verify it. To begin, he pointed out that when Dino betrayed them, the labyrinth had been partially destroyed, allowing Feldway to enter. That implied that Feldway needed at least some form of contact to influence Dino. Ramirez added that even inside the labyrinth, total isolation wasn't possible. Telepathic communication was still viable, which explained how Feldway coordinated with Dino and the other controlled subordinates. With that in mind, Rimuru asked Guy about what had happened with Velzard. The place looked like a war zone, which made it obvious the married couple had thrown hands. But the critical point was how Feldway managed to control her. If Michael's control worked over unlimited distance, that would be far too dangerous. Guy explained that Feldway had pierced the ice and snow barriers, injured Rain and Misery, and was about to be confronted by Guy, until Velzard blocked his way. Hearing that, Rimuru concluded that Feldway hadn't made direct contact with her, just gotten close. That was the same condition Dino had been in, but there was still a chance it was all a trick, to make them think proximity was required even if it wasn't. Leon, do you feel anything strange at all? No, I feel completely normal. Which meant absolutely nothing, since even Velgrand and Lieutenant Kondo hadn't realized they were being controlled. In other words, the one you love is me. Idiot, it's Chloe, I don't care about you. That blunt reaction reassured everyone. Yes, that was unmistakably Leon. Ciel then reported that Feldway's words inside the labyrinth indicated he didn't actually know who possessed self-awakened angelic ultimate skills. That confirmed at least one thing. The enemy had incomplete information. Rimuru's intuition told him Leon was still safe, and he decided to trust that feeling. Ciel suggested using predation to destroy Leon's control circuit altogether, but Rimuru immediately refused. The idea of predating Leon felt physiologically unpleasant. Better to trust him. Rimuru then stated his conclusion, even if there were still uncertainties. Guy asked what basis Rimuru had for believing the enemy didn't know all the angelic skill holders, so Rimuru explained about the battle records in the labyrinth and how Feldway's statements implied he only knew about skills granted directly by Veldanava, not self-awakened ones like Leon's. Ramirez proudly accepted Rimuru's praise for the labyrinth's usefulness, immediately becoming smug. Rimuru ignored her reaction and continued. Since Leon never bragged about his skill, it would take time before Feldway realized what Leon truly possessed. Leon sighed, agreeing that revealing his hand would have been foolish. Guy nodded in agreement, Luminous approved. Dagruel did too, and Milim gave her enthusiastic stamp of trust. Everything was finally resolving, until Ramirez had to mutter something unnecessary. That's right. Leon-chan may need someone to monitor him. The question is, who? And that was the end of it. Rimuru-kun? Fine, I get it. Don't say anything else. Resisting was pointless. Rimuru gave up and accepted the role of Leon's personal watchdog. With the mysteries surrounding Michael's control ability and Leon's situation temporarily settled, the 8-star demon lords, now reduced to 7, shifted their attention to the next steps. Everyone shared a common enemy, which meant cooperation and clarity were more important than ever. Rimuru took the lead and asked what each demon lord intended to do. Guy was the first to respond, stating bluntly that he planned to destroy Feldway. Luminous calmly concluded that an all-out war was inevitable. Milim, meanwhile, was unusually excited, loudly declaring she would smash both Feldway and Michael with a single punch. Phantom King Feldway, huh? With his return, it's only natural that a battle for control of the world will begin. That was Ramirez. Rimuru felt she was being a bit too dramatic as usual, but he didn't comment further. Even if Ramirez couldn't throw a proper punch, the labyrinth was essential, so he let it slide. Since they couldn't fight an enemy they didn't understand, Leon asked Guy about the enemy's strength. Guy simply shook his head. All he knew was that among the 7 primordial angels were Feldway and Dino, and now Michael, who had replaced Rudra, stood above them. Even Velzard Dono is effectively our enemy this time. This Tenma Great War will be quite difficult. Daggrael's words surprised Rimuru. Luminous had once mentioned the Tenma Great War during her visit to Tempest, but Rimuru didn't understand how it connected to the current situation. Sensing the confusion, Daggrael explained casually, but his explanation shocked everyone except Guy. That's right. Isn't the war, which takes place every 500 years or so, essentially Rudra's ability to summon angels? While the Tenma Great War was common knowledge, the revelation that Rudra was the cause of it was astonishing. Luminous even snapped at him for talking nonsense, but Guy confirmed Daggrael's words. And with that, the meeting entered yet another phase. Let's have a separate video about that. Now thank you for listening. Bye and see you again.